The summer sun was dipping low over Willow Lake, casting a golden glow across our family's cabin, when I pulled into the gravel driveway, expecting the usual quiet evening. Instead, my stomach churned at the sight before me. A garish red VY Olation notice, painted in dripping letters across our front door like a fresh wound. The words screamed, structure non-compliant with 2024 community standards. 30 days to comply or face legal action. My blood boiled. This wasn't just paint on wood, it was a declaration of war from the Willow Creek HOA, led by the ruthless Margaret Hensley. Little did they know, they just poked a sleeping bear named Pops, my 78-year-old grandfather, Walter Hayes. Our cabin, built in 1990, wasn't just a house. It was a treasure chest of memories, first kisses, anniversary dinners, and lazy mornings fishing with Pops and Nana Ellie before she passed 3 years ago. After her death, Pops moved here full-time, tending to the roses they'd planted together, seeking peace in the lake's gentle ripples. The cabin had a grandfather clause, shielding it from the HOA's meddling since their founding in 1985. Or so we thought. The red paint didn't just mark our door. It smeared our mailbox to a federal offense, as Pops pointed out, his voice steady, but his eyes blazing like a storm brewing. Pops wasn't your average retiree. A former Army Corps of Engineers veteran, he'd spent 25 years designing defensive systems for military bases. As he stood in his rose garden, hose in hand, water pooling around his boots, his knuckles whitened, and his jaw clenched. The Bengal roses, with their 3-inch thorns glinting like tiny daggers, seemed to mirror his mood. Some battles you fight to win, Tommy, he said, his voice low, dangerous. I felt a knot tighten in my gut. This wasn't going to end with a polite letter. The next day, my wife, Sarah, and I stormed into the HOA's sleek office, where Margaret sat behind a desk that screamed money. Her smile was as fake as her charm, her voice dripping with condescension. We're so sorry, but your cabin VY OLATs our updated standards, she said, sliding a folder across the desk like a poker player revealing a weak hand. Sarah, a lawyer with a knack for spotting lies, leaned forward. That cabin's protected by a grandfather clause, and painting our property is vandalism plus. Tampering with our mailbox is a federal crime. Margaret's eye twitched, but she doubled down, claiming it was an emergency notification for community safety. Then her husband, Richard, swaggered in, boasting about their connections with the city council. The threat was clear. They had the system rigged. Their offer? Buy our cabin for due law $250,000 chump change compared to its due law $850,000 market value. Sarah laughed, sharp and cutting. You're trying to steal it for a resort, aren't you? The pieces clicked. They bought 4 lakefront properties in 8 months. Our cabin would give them 51 fan tram control, enough for a mini-resort. Margaret's mask slipped when Sarah vowed to file federal complaints and dig into zoning records. Good luck, Margaret sneered, her voice pure steel. As we left, Sarah's phone rang. Margaret's voice purred through the speaker. Accidents happen at lakefront properties, especially for stubborn old men. The threat hung heavy, chilling the air. Back at the cabin, the harassment kicked into high gear. Power outages lasted 3 days. Water mains broke, mail stopped, and our internet vanished. A fake construction crew blocked our driveway with jackhammers, turning our peaceful retreat into a war zone. Our neighbor, Mrs. Clara Thompson, confided they'd done the same to her over her apple trees. They've bullied everyone for years, she whispered, fear and fury in her eyes. Pops, though, wasn't shaken. He sat in his garage, sketching in an old leather notebook, a faded photo of him and Nana Ellie planting roses tucked inside. This is our legacy, Tommy, he said. I'll be damned if I let them destroy it. Pops spent days transforming his rose garden into a fortress. He repositioned 30 Bengal rose bushes into a maze, their thorns like medieval spikes. Hidden tracks let the planters slide silently, guided by motion sensors and water pressure systems simple, legal, and deadly effective. Clear stepping stones marked a safe path, with signs warning, automated garden systems sung-whited VY siders beware. To outsiders, it was just a pretty garden. To intruders, it was a nightmare. One evening, Pop spotted Margaret's SUV at the boat launch, binoculars trained on our cabin. He grabbed his own, studying them like a sniper. "They're planning something big," he said, his voice calm, but edged with anticipation. New surveillance cameras had appeared across the lake. Proof Margaret was escalating. I worried, but Pops just patted my shoulder. "They don't know who they're messing with." The storm broke on a Monday morning when 5 inspectors showed up, led by a hulking guy named Carl, while VYing a clipboard like a badge of authority. They claimed reports of dangerous traps. Pop smiled, shark-like. "Gentlemen, let me show you my roses." Carl stepped onto the porch, triggering his sensor. Sprinklers blasted him with water, soaking his clipboard in pride. Another inspector leaned on the railing, which tilted 20 degrees, nearly dumping him into the thorns. A third reached for the door, only to be deafened by a 120-decibel air horn. The roses slid into place, blocking their exit with a wall of thorns. Carl's camera fritzed out, thanks to Pop's signal jammer. "Follow the stones," Pops called, mockingly polite. It took 15 minutes for them to limp back to their van, scratched, soaked, and humiliated. Deputy Mike Carter arrived after a noise complaint, but found only Pops watering his roses, the garden pristine, signs clearly posted. "Everything okay, Walter?" Mike asked, stifling a grin at the wet footprints and torn fabric snagged on thorns. "Just GIVYing a garden tour," Pops replied, innocent as a choir boy. That night, Margaret called, furious, but Pops was untouchable. His system was legal, defensive, and flawless. Her retaliation was VY Sias. Fake roadwork trapped us in our driveway. Utilities vanished, and city inspectors hounded us. Worst, Margaret filed a restraining order claiming Pop's garden was a weaponized hazard and he showed dementia. Doctored photos made his roses look like a fortress. A judge, swayed by her lies, banned Pops from using his defenses. For the first time, I saw him falter, his hands trembling as he read the order. "Am I endangering you all?" he asked, voice soft, vulnerable. My heart ached. He was just an old man fighting for his home. Then hope arrived. Ethan Brooks, a young lawyer and son of Pop's army buddy, called with a bombshell. Using AI, he'd uncovered zoning fraud tied to Margaret's schemes. An anonymous tip delivered recordings of her bribing utility companies and city officials. Clara and 6 neighbors brought more. Hidden cameras, audio, and documents VYing years of HOA terror. They've been too scared to fight, but Pop's stand inspired them. "We're done being silent," Clara said, tears in her eyes. Margaret's final move came at 2:30 a.m. 3 thugs big, Joe Malone, Eddie Crane, and Vince Russo crept toward our cabin with crowbars and sledgehammers. Pops, expecting this, had tipped off the sheriff. As Big Joe hit the porch, the garden sprang to life. Roses slid into a thorn maze, floodlights blazed, and mud sprinklers doused them in a stinking, slippery mess. Air horns screamed, sending birds fleeing. The thugs, blinded and trapped, flailed in panic. Needles everywhere. Eddie howled, thorns snagging his clothes. Cameras caught it all, including Margaret's written orders in Big Joe's pocket. Deputy Mike arrived in 8 minutes, finding 3 mud-soaked criminals surrounded by roses. "You're under arrest for attempted vandalism and trespassing," he said, barely hiding his amusement. The VY Denke was ironclad. VY Deo, audio, and Margaret's instructions. As the police hauled them away, Pops stepped onto the porch, moonlight glinting off the thorns. "It's all recorded, Tommy," he said, a quiet smile breaking through. "Every damn second." The courtroom buzzed with neighbors and reporters. Judge Ellen Harper, known for her no-nonsense rulings, oversaw the case. Ethan presented our EVY Denke, VY Deos of the thugs' failed attack, recordings of Margaret's bribes, and neighbors' testimonies about years of abuse. Clara recounted fake VY-olations over her trees. Rosa Lopez told of threats over her kids' bikes. The room grew tense, Judge Harper's face darkening. "Margaret Hensley's actions are a betrayal of trust," she declared, VYing the HOA, clearing Pops, and granting our cabin historical protection. We won damages, Richard's company crumbled, and Margaret fled, a fugitive. That night, neighbors gathered at the cabin, raising glasses to Pops, now Willow Lake's guardian. Clara gave him a sign etched with the title. Pops sat on his porch, beer in hand, the lake glowing crimson. "Any regrets?" I asked. He pulled a dried rose from his notebook, pressed beside his sketches. "Some folks need reminding you can't bully everyone," he said, eyes twinkling. "Especially not an old engineer who knows a thing or two about thorns." Pops turned his maze into Thornway Trail, teaching kids about defensive gardening. He's already sketching a new projected community garden with lessons on standing together. The lake's peaceful now, our cabin proud, roses gleaming. Margaret thought she could paint a notice and win. She learned the hard way. Mess with Walter Hayes, and you'll get pricked. Was Pops a hero or a reckless vigilante? Should he have fought legally from the start? Or was his Thorn maze justice served? Could Margaret's resort have benefited the community, or was it pure greed? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if you're Team Pops, and subscribe for more stories where the underdog bites back. What would Sayusa have done?